the early 19th century. Picture a land of unparalleled beauty and unforgiving brutality. The American West. Sprawling wilderness stretched further than the eye could see. A tapestry of towering, snow-capped mountains, dense, ancient forests, and rivers that carved their own paths through the unblemished earth. This was a world teeming with life, a vibrant ecosystem where nature dictated the terms of existence. And into this magnificent, perilous realm stepped a unique breed of individual, the mountain man. Part 1. The wilderness and its human inhabitants. These were not settlers looking to tame the land with plows and fences. They were drawn by the raw, untrammeled freedom, by the challenge, and most significantly, by the insatiable demand for beaver pelts in a fashion-conscious Europe. These men, often solitary figures or small, transient groups, were the ultimate frontiersmen. They were trappers, explorers, guides, and above all, survivors. Their existence was a stark contrast to the comforts of civilization. Every sunrise brought new dangers. Every sunset brought the chill of uncertainty. Their lives were a constant negotiation with the wilderness. They learned its languages, the whisper of the wind, the rustle of leaves, the distant roar of a waterfall. They understood its rhythms, the changing seasons, the migration patterns of game, the ebb and flow of life and death. But this deep understanding also brought an acute awareness of the dangers that lurked in every shadow, behind every thicket. And among the most formidable, the most cunning, and the most physically imposing of these dangers were the wolves and the bears. For us, in a world often removed from true wilderness, these animals are icons of wild beauty, symbols of ecological balance. But for the mountain man, they were a tangible, ever-present threat. They were competitors for vital resources. They were saboteurs of their valuable traps. And most chillingly, they were predators capable of ending a man's life in a terrifying, instant struggle. This was not about conservation. It was about survival, raw and unvarnished. It was a primal struggle, a dance with death where only the sharpest wits and the steadiest hands could prevail. We're going to delve deep into how these legendary figures navigated a world where the very act of living meant constant vigilance against nature's most powerful forces. Part 2. The Shadow Pack, Mountain Men versus Wolves. Let's begin our journey into this dangerous world with the wolf. In the 19th century American West, wolf populations were immense, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, if not more. Great packs roamed the vast plains and mountain valleys, their haunting howls echoing through the night, a chilling reminder of their ever-present proximity. For the mountain men, wolves were far more than just wild animals. They were highly intelligent, opportunistic, and relentless adversaries. The primary threat wolves posed wasn't typically direct attack on a human, although a desperate, starving, or rabid wolf certainly presented a deadly peril. More often, the wolf's danger was economic and strategic. A trapper's livelihood, his very reason for being in the wilderness, revolved around his trapline. This was a painstaking operation. Miles of treacherous terrain navigated daily, where valuable beaver, otter, and other fur-bearing animals were caught. Wolves, with their legendary sense of smell and cunning, were notorious for raiding these traplines. Imagine the frustration and financial devastation. A wolf pack could easily follow a trapper's scent trail, or be drawn by the scent of bait or a captured animal. They might destroy a trapped beaver, rendering its pelt worthless, or spring the trap, costing the trapper valuable time, effort, and future catches. This wasn't just a nuisance. It was a direct economic assault, potentially wiping out a season's profits and jeopardizing the trapper's ability to resupply. A ruined trapline could mean starvation. So how did these frontiersmen, who had to be resourceful beyond measure, contend with this pervasive threat? Their strategies were born of necessity, honed by brutal experience, and often combined clever preventative measures with decisive, lethal responses. This was a battle of wits and endurance, where the mountain man's survival hung in the balance. They had to think like wolves to outsmart them. Part 3. Cunning and Conflict. Wolf Strategies. The mountain men understood animal behavior intimately, and this knowledge was their first line of defense. To deter wolves from their valuable traplines, they employed ingenious methods. One common practice was to mask their own scent. Human scent was often a warning sign to many wild animals, but a curious wolf might still investigate. Trappers might rub their boots with strong-smelling substances like beaver castor, or even use bear grease or other animal musk to confuse or deter wolves. They'd often walk in stream beds or along rocky ridges to break their scent trail, making it harder for a following pack to track them directly to their traps. Trap placement itself was an art form. Traps were set in ways that made it difficult for larger animals to accidentally or intentionally trigger them without being caught. Sometimes, small, camouflaged obstacles would be placed to funnel animals correctly, or make it harder for a wolf to simply paw at the bait. Elevating their caches of furs and supplies was another crucial preventative measure. Wolves, like most scavengers, are opportunistic, hanging their prized pelts, dried meat, and other provisions high in trees, on specially constructed scaffolds, or in caves with narrow entrances, kept them tantalizingly out of reach of even the most determined wolf. However, deterrence could only go so far. When direct confrontation was unavoidable, the mountain man's ultimate tool was his rifle. The legendary Hawken rifle, a heavy, large-caliber muzzleloader, was a prized possession, often purchased at great cost. Its accuracy and stopping power were vital. A well-placed shot could bring down a wolf, and eliminating a problematic individual or pack was often the quickest solution to a persistent threat. But ammunition was precious, and a missed shot or a crippled wolf could turn the tables rapidly, creating an even more dangerous situation. Beyond the rifle, mountain men also employed wolf traps. These were considerably larger and more robust than beaver traps, often featuring formidable iron jaws designed to snap shut with immense force, capable of breaking a wolf's leg or holding it fast. These traps were meticulously baited with carrion or strong-smelling animal parts to lure the wolves in. Setting and checking these powerful traps was inherently dangerous. A wounded or desperate wolf, caught and suffering, could be incredibly aggressive and dangerous, capable of inflicting severe injuries on its captor. Killing a wolf wasn't just about protection. Its hide, though less valuable than beaver, could still be used for warmth or traded, making it a grim but practical outcome. Part 4. The Reign of the Grizzly. Mountain men versus bears. If the wolf was the cunning shadow, the bear was the undisputed monarch of the wilderness, a creature of immense power and unpredictable temperament. And in the vast, rugged landscapes of the 19th century Rocky Mountains, one bear reigned supreme: the grizzly bear. These were not the comparatively smaller and more timid black bears common in some regions today. These were magnificent, colossal creatures, often weighing hundreds of pounds, with impressive strength, long, curved claws, and a fearsome, almost legendary, reputation for ferocity. Encounters with grizzlies were almost always life-or-death situations, high-stakes gambles where the slightest misstep could mean a gruesome end. A charging grizzly was a force of nature, capable of disemboweling a man with a single pulverizing swipe. Unlike wolves, bears, especially grizzlies, represented a direct, personal, and terrifying threat. They might raid a camp for food, driven by an insatiable hunger and an incredible sense of smell. They might attack without any apparent provocation if surprised, or most lethally, they might defend their cubs with an unparalleled, berserk rage. Their sheer size and power meant that a confrontation was often a desperate struggle for survival, a test of a man's courage and skill under unimaginable pressure. Survival against these titans depended on an almost supernatural awareness of their presence, an intimate understanding of their habits, and an unwavering readiness for instant, decisive action. The margin for error was non-existent. A mountain man in grizzly country lived in a constant state of heightened alert, his senses perpetually scanning for any sign of these apex predators. His life depended on knowing when to avoid and when to fight. Part 5. Confronting the Giants. Bear Strategies. The first and, by far, the best defense against a bear attack was avoidance. Mountain men were master trackers and observers of the natural world. They learned to read the subtle signs of bear activity as if they were written in a giant, invisible script across the landscape. Fresh tracks in the mud or snow, piles of scat, deep claw marks on trees where a bear had stretched or sharpened its claws, overturned rocks where they'd rooted for grubs, the distinct, musky odor of a bear's presence. These were all critical pieces of intelligence. They knew to steer clear of dense thickets, particularly during berry season, or areas where carcasses might indicate a recent kill, as these were prime locations for bears to be feeding or resting. Making noise while traveling through dense brush was another common and essential practice. Many mountain men would sing, shout, or clang their metal utensils as they moved, especially in areas with limited visibility. The goal was simple: avoid startling a bear at close quarters. A surprised bear, suddenly confronted, is far more likely to charge defensively than one that is aware of your approach and can choose to simply move away. And, just as with wolves, securing food was paramount. Bears possess an olfactory sense vastly superior to humans, and they are incredibly curious about new scents, especially those indicating food. Dried meat, cured fat, and other provisions had to be meticulously hung high from strong tree branches, well away from the camp, or stored in sealed containers if available, to prevent attracting these powerful scavengers. A bear attracted to a camp by food could quickly escalate into a life-threatening situation. But despite all precautions, avoidance wasn't always possible. Sooner or later, a mountain man might find himself in a terrifying head-on confrontation with a bear. In such a desperate encounter, his rifle was his only true hope. Unlike wolves, a single rifle shot was rarely enough to bring down a charging grizzly, especially a large one. The heavy lead ball from a Hawken rifle, while powerful, could be deflected by bone, or simply not hit a vital organ in a fast-moving, adrenaline-fueled beast. The target was critical. While a shot to the head or heart was ideal, it was incredibly difficult to achieve on a rapidly charging bear. Many mountain men aimed for the shoulder to break a leg and slow the charge, hoping to buy themselves a precious moment for a second shot, or the slimmest chance to escape into a nearby tree or dense cover. If the rifle failed, misfired, or if the bear was upon them before a shot could be fired, the mountain man's absolute last resort was often his hunting knife. These were not small utility knives. They were heavy, robust blades, sometimes nearly as long as a short sword. Stories from the era speak of desperate, horrifying hand-to-claw combat, where men would plunge their knives into a bear's vitals as it mauled them. These were unspeakably brutal encounters, almost always ending with severe, disfiguring injuries or death for the man, even if the bear was ultimately killed. Many old mountain men carried the grim badges of these encounters: mangled limbs, deep scars on their faces or bodies, often a missing eye or ear, stoic testaments to their brutal survival against overwhelming, primal odds. Part 6. Living with the Wild and Enduring Legacy. Beyond the specific tactics, the rifles, and the traps, the mountain men possessed something far more profound: an almost instinctual, deeply ingrained understanding of the wilderness. This wasn't merely knowledge gleaned from books or maps. It was a way of life, a visceral connection that permeated every fiber of their being. They didn't just live in nature, they lived with it, constantly observing, learning, and adapting. This intimate, lived knowledge was, arguably, their most powerful weapon, a survival tool more potent than any Hawken rifle. They could read the land like a book, a skill honed by endless hours of solitary observation. The subtle twitch of an animal's ear in the distance, barely perceptible, might signal a predator's approach. A faint, unfamiliar scent on the wind could carry a critical warning. They could differentiate between fresh claw marks on a tree, perhaps where a bear stretched after waking from hibernation, and older, less threatening signs. They understood the specific patterns of birds suddenly erupting from a copse of trees, indicating a larger animal on the move below. Every overturned rock, every broken twig, every shifting shadow held a piece of vital intelligence. These seemingly minor details, invisible to the untrained eye, were like bold headlines to the mountain man, providing crucial insights into the proximity and intentions of dangerous animals long before they ever became a direct, tangible threat. This constant state of heightened awareness was mentally and physically exhausting, a perpetual tension that never fully abated, yet it was absolutely essential for survival. Their very senses became extensions of the wilderness itself, an early warning system against unseen perils. Dealing with predators, whether the cunning, elusive wolf or the colossal, unpredictable grizzly bear, also demanded immense patience and unyielding perseverance. Hastiness or recklessness in the wild almost invariably led to disaster. A mountain man might spend hours, even days, meticulously tracking a problematic wolf pack that had been raiding traplines, waiting for the perfect moment to set a snare or lay an ambush. When facing a charging bear, there was often only a fraction of a second to act. But even that fraction required a lifetime of disciplined practice. Loading and aiming a heavy muzzleloader under duress, judging the beast's speed, identifying the most vulnerable target. They learned to observe meticulously, plan with foresight, and execute with cold, calculated precision. Their very lives depended on this disciplined approach, an internal fortitude that allowed them to remain calm and decisive even in the face of overwhelming terror. This wasn't bravado. It was a testament to a unique kind of mental toughness, forged in the crucible of constant danger. It is crucial to understand that while they often killed these animals, mountain men also harbored a deep, abiding respect for them. There was no sense of wanton cruelty, no destruction for destruction's sake. Every kill was a necessity for their survival, a grim but unavoidable part of the natural order they inhabited. They certainly feared these powerful animals, but it was a healthy, intelligent fear, one born of intimate knowledge and profound respect for their power, not the fear of ignorance. This fear fueled their caution, sharpened their skills, and crucially, prevented them from ever underestimating their adversaries. They saw the bear as a force of nature, not merely an animal to be conquered, but a fellow inhabitant of a brutal landscape, equally determined to survive. The era of the mountain men, driven by the lucrative fur trade, eventually waned as fashions changed and beaver populations dwindled. As settlements gradually expanded westward and the frontier receded, the vast, untamed wilderness they knew began to shrink. The immense wolf and bear populations they had faced were dramatically reduced by subsequent waves of hunters, trappers, and settlers, often to near extinction in many areas. The world changed, and with it, the very nature of human interaction with the wild. But the extraordinary stories of their encounters with these formidable creatures endure. They are not merely anecdotes. They are profound tales of unparalleled grit, incredible resourcefulness, and a deep, often brutal, connection to the raw, untamed power of nature. The mountain men were pioneers in the most authentic sense, forging paths and carving out existences in a land that actively and violently resisted their presence. Their legacy is not just one of exploration and the pursuit of fur. It is a legacy of fundamental survival against overwhelming odds, a testament to the enduring human spirit when pushed to its absolute limits. They were living embodiments of self-reliance, teaching us, through their struggles, what it truly means to live off the land, to understand its intricate rhythms, and to face its most fearsome inhabitants with courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will to survive. The towering mountains and sweeping valleys, once their hunting grounds and their battlegrounds, now stand as a silent, majestic monument to their incredible struggle, a struggle forever etched into the very fabric of the American West. Their echoes resonate still, a powerful reminder of a time when man faced the wild, eye to eye, and emerged, against all odds, to tell the tale.